Silly Mysteries. Mystery number 2. What happened to Chip's blanket? Another mystery, said Red. This isn't funny, said Chip. I need that blanket. Let's find some clues, Red said. Chip looked at the seeds and nuts on the ground. If I don't eat, I'm going to get nervous, he said. The two friends ate all the seeds and nuts. Red ran to the river to get a drink of water. He slipped and almost fell. Hey, there's water on the trail, he said. That reminds me, said Chip. I found 2 clues that may help us get the blanket back. Tell me what they are, Red said. I'll tell you if they'll solve the mystery. There is water on the trail from here to the river, said Chip. Hey, I found a clue, Red said. I slipped and fell on it. Also, said Chip, whoever took the blanket didn't take the food. Red scratched his head. Is that a clue? If someone doesn't do something? It might be, said Chip. I have it! Red jumped up and down, waving his arms. Already? Said Chip. My mind works like a computer, Red said. Good, said Chip. Where's my blanket? Your blanket isn't the only thing we have to worry about, said Red. Someone may be in danger. What? I'll explain, Red said. Remember the water on the trail clue? Well, whoever took the blanket got it wet in the river. Why? Said Chip. To put out the fire. What fire? The fire they started by playing with matches, Red said. I'm all mixed up, said Chip. Who was playing with matches? And what does that have to do with my missing blanket? Here's what happened, said Red. Someone was playing with matches, something happened, and he caught on fire. A friend ran to the river to get some water to put out the fire, but he did not have anything to carry the water in. So he grabbed your blanket and ran with it to the river? He got the blanket wet and dragged it on the trail. That's how the ground got so wet. He put the blanket around the person who was on fire. He was trying to put out the fire. It's simple. It could have happened that way, I suppose, Chip said, but you can put out a fire with a dry blanket. You don't have to wet it. We have to find the fire and get your blanket back, said Red, and we must hurry. The fire may burn down our woods. He ran off. Chip caught up with Red. Old Green Frog was standing in the middle of the trail. Have you seen that new beaver? Old Frog said in his slow, deep voice. Disgusting. Have you seen a fire? Said Red. No. Then step aside, said Red. We may have to save a life. He ran around the frog and down the trail. Don't you go, Chip, said Old Green Frog. I have to talk to you about Beaver. All right, Chip said. We could talk while I'm waiting for Red to get back. Beaver flooded me off my favorite rock with that dam of his, said Old Frog. I had to find another place to live. Come on, we could talk there. Old Frog led Chip off the trail. There it is, he said. It's my new home. It's a tent, said Chip, surprised. I always wanted to live in a nice place like this, said Old Frog when they were inside, but I was afraid to move. That rock wasn't a very good home, but I hated to leave it. Well, you can thank Beaver's dam for this, said Chip, looking around. It got you into this great new home. Old Frog nodded. You're right, he said. Still, I miss the old rock something terrible. This is more comfortable looking, said Chip. There was something nice and, well, flat about my rock, said Old Frog. That's true, Chip said. And wet, Old Frog went on, especially underneath. We frogs like wet things. The beaver dam will be nice for you, said Chip. There will be more water. The beaver dam turns part of the river into a pond. There will be more insects, lily pads, things like that. Lily pads? There are usually lily pads in ponds, said Chip. I love lily pads, croaked Old Frog. I haven't seen any lily pads in years. I'm glad you're happy about it, said Chip. Blanket looks familiar. Did you know I was once a tadpole under a lily pad? Asked Old Frog. I thought you were, Chip said. That was before I grew lungs and legs and had to spend time on land, said Old Frog. I'll bet that felt funny, said Chip. Old Green Frog spoke softly. I'll tell you something I never told anyone before, he said. I never wanted to grow up and become a frog. You must have been having a good time, said Chip. I liked being a tadpole, said Old Frog. It sounds like fun, said Chip. Chip, I've changed my mind about Beaver, said Old Frog. I'm glad he made his pond in our river. That was a wonderful thing to do. Just then the red squirrel came back. I've looked all over, he said, and I can't find that fire anywhere. What fire? Asked Old Frog. If we find the fire, we can get Chip's blanket back, Red said. Chip jumped to his feet. He means... black hat, Chip said. No, I don't, said Red. I mean Ouch. Why did you pull my tail, Chip? Oh, excuse me, Chip said. When the two friends got away from Old Frog, Chip said, I solved the mystery. I didn't want Old Frog to know. I was trying to keep you quiet. What does Old Frog have to do with it? Asked Red. My blanket wasn't wet. The person that took it was wet, said Chip. Someone fell in the water? Asked Red. Suppose he lived part of the time in the water, said Chip. If he came out of the water and up the trail, he would drip water on the ground. So then the ground could get wet. And suppose he had just lost his home when the water from the pond covered it. Suppose he saw the blanket and wanted to use it to make a new home. Out of a blanket? Said Red. Sure. He made a tent. With your blanket? Red said. He can't do that. And suppose he's living in the tent and he's very happy there, said Chip. Red spun around. He looked up the trail. Old Green Frog has a tent, he said. Right, said Chip. That tent is my blanket, and I don't have the heart to take it back. I saw that tent right up close, said Red, but I didn't see that it was your blanket. The next time we go on a picnic, bring your blanket, said Chip. Then you'll know it when you see it. Next time, we'll read Mystery Number 3, More of a Trick Than a Mystery.